30 seconds, we can start.
Krishnam Kamalapatraksham Punyashravanakirtanam Vasudevam Jagadyonim Naumi Narayanam Harim Kanyam Kumarikam Balam Arnavatraya Samritam Dumbide Nirayam Mande Durgam Devim Shuchismitam Matpunyaleshat Hridaya Prakasha Bala Madiya Nitaram Madiya Kutasaname Rasanagrabhage Karoti Vacham Bahusauštavena Pratyaksha Saradabhutam Brahma Jnaneka Lakshanam Sarvabhishta Pradhataram Bharati Tirtham Ashraya. I came to this country with no great expectations. I came here for rest, not for recreation. I thought that in this quiet place there would be many occasions when I could delve into myself without any conspicuous effort on my part. And I came here and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed my own solitude, wherein I cogitated within myself all that is necessary for me to confirm my faith in my faith. I have been a follower of Advaita Shastra expounded by Adi Shankara with the gloss of Brahmanandagiri and others. But as the years developed and I passed through the various phases of my own life, I could see the very different way in which Hinduism came to be practiced when contrasted with what it was intended to be at the beginning of time. What happens in these cases is there is a certain influence on any branch of thought through the environmental changes that take place in the minds of scholars and in the physical environment around them. On that basis, a time arose when a certain group of people put themselves as brokers between man and God and converted religion into religiosity. When it became that, it created a circumstance in which the help of somebody other than the text was necessary to understand certain things. The text got distorted in annotation, either consciously or unconsciously, all because of the prejudices that were contemporary and therefore had to be respected to survive in any area of human activity. That way, the original Hinduism changed color, composition, direction, emphasis, and content. There is one good thing about it all. Nothing could shake the fundamental roots of that faith, which cannot be altered by any human being because they were emanations from the infinite when the first primal sound began reverberating in the primeval waters after the deluge. So, a purity of content was always there. Even any amount of gloss can be put upon it, but when you delve deep into it, you got at the kernel, and then you will not be deceived. That is how I analyze every stage, the faith to which I belong and the faith which other people are practicing. By contrast, comparison, assimilation, integration, by all the means available for the intellect to size up anything, it was possible for me to come to certain definite conclusions. At that time, I met a gentleman from the Himalayas. He put to me one question. You are a Hindu. There are two difficulties with your religion. Then I asked him, before that, I want to know who you are and what your faith is. He said, I have no faith. I am a human being, nothing more and nothing less. but I thought I could exchange some ideas with you, because somehow intuitively I thought you would have the answer for that. My only two questions are: why Hinduism became a pantheon with a number of gods? What made God the formless, the attributeless, omnipotence into characters of legends, characters of particular form and disposition, of personalities, of proclivities, which may not be human, but which are very human in their ultimate effect? So I told him, I have also analyzed the subject in my own way, helped by the ancient texts of our country. And I found that at the beginning of time, God could be conceived by the sharp intellects of those people as a formless entity. They did not even use the name entity, because entity has a content, a quality and a form. God was formless. God is attributeless. He was everything. He could be described in any way, just as you can take any form if you want on the basis of your imagination. They wanted to concentrate upon God as a formless entity. And then they discovered that it would not be possible for many people, not even for them at some times, to conceive him in that fashion. And so the thought of infinite as a composition working with a certain number of items, which they broadly distributed as elements and subdivided into the vikaras, as it is called. And then they thought men can understand only form and name. Men can understand only what is contained in time. Men go after things related to a particular location and a particular individual. And therefore, since the world consists of form and name, and there's a gender, they thought they could conceive of God as a male and a female. And the male form was called by them as Shiva. The term means auspicious. That will create in your mind, a type of intuitive righteousness. That is Shiva. The other form, representing the other gender, was Vishnu. And at the same time, they were trying to disabuse impressions that we created, that duality of the infinite could ultimately make the infinite fade away from memory. And therefore, they began linking the form, that Vishnu emanated, from his navel Brahma came, the creator, and from Brahma came Rudra. Not that these things physically happened, that it was a correlation of three duties which sustain the world of creation, sustenance, and absorption, or pralaya. And then, as time went on, each form got individualized. And then came a situation in which Shiva had a Shakti, Shiva had two sons. And then that confusion had to be resolved. And therefore, they said, Shiva represents fire, Shakti represents its heat, Murra, Skanda represents its light, and Ganesha, the line drawing. All of them are one and the same persons. At the same time, there is a peculiar explanation necessary. When you give a form, that form is limited in a sense. If you have four hands, the space between four hands is not occupied. Therefore, a God that you think of must occupy all space, must occupy all time, and should occupy also all forms. And therefore, they expanded the concept into the infinite as containing within itself everything that is seen as the world and creation. Then came a question there as to how anyone can make a choice of this infinite. And somebody has to explain to them, if God is a compassionate being, why should he have so many weapons in his hand? Is he a destructive force, basically? And therefore, they have given explanation. You conceive of Vishnu as having the discus, as having the conch, as having the mace and the lotus. Don't take them for what they are. Discus represents the wheel of time. God transcends time and controls it. That is symbolized by the discus. Primal creation came from the vibration of sound, the Omkara, into the primeval waters of the deluge. And sound principle was represented by the conch. And when you try to elevate your mind to higher things, always arrogance and ego will try to intervene. And for that purpose, you try to control ego. Ego is represented by the mace, the gada, and God holds it in one hand. And then, when man is in the midst of prosperity, he might lose himself in it. The lotus represents prosperity, but water does not stick to it. Detached attachment is a peculiar situation which has been explained in the Vedas in 3 khandas. Detached attachment is the way in which, when you wealth, you shed your proclivity for egoism, arrogance, and things like that. As far as the individual is concerned, practicing these things will be very difficult. So he was told, don't worry about the symbols and the substance. Take this form of God, or I give you a cafeteria approach. I describe many forms. You take that which is very beloved for you. And that way the forms evolve. And my interlocutor immediately asked me, which form then, according to the Hindu faith, is more easily accessible? The answer is given in Nrsimha Uttara Tapani Upanishad, where it says, when you conceive of God in the form of a child, it is easily accessible. Your mind becomes as innocent as that of the child. And so, therefore, you worship Krishna as Bala Krishna, Kumara as Bala Kumara, Ayyappan as Bala Ayyappan. And at the same time, you have to interlink all these things. When you examine the human body from this, not the psychological angle, from the neural angle, you will find there are 2 halves in it. One half can be easily described as feminine, with feminine proclivities, and the other masculine. They tried to symbolize this by creating a god consisting of the merger of Vishnu and Shiva, Ardhana, and merger of Devi and Shiva. One was Ardhanarishwara, the other was Shankara Narayana. And therefore, when you look at it that way, you find the unity should not be forgotten when you concentrate on the Godhead. And my interlocutor put another question. How do you escape from form? Once you begin conceiving of God in form, you will be immersed in it, and you will limit your thinking to the form itself, forgetting omniscience and omnipotence, which is the characteristic of the infinite. The answer was, from the known to the unknown is the way in which knowledge expands. This form and this name is given to you as the initial indicator of what you should search for. The more you go after it, automatically you will find that it merges these parallel lines. These parallel lines do meet in infinity. The very concept that God is infinite is intended to indicate that everything ultimately leads to Him, just as anyone walking from any point of the earth towards the pole will be reaching it at the same time, whichever direction he can take. So, unity of direction is given by formal alignment of the mind to form, And then how to sustain that knowledge of the form? Legends came into being. See, in Christianity, it is said, God created man in his own image. The Hindu rishis created God according to a human form that they possessed. It was the man becoming God. And they proved it in one particular way in which it was very evident. You have churches, you have temples, you have synagogues. All those exist because, not because there is God inside them, but because people frequent them. The moment people cease to go to a temple, it falls into ruins. According to the Shastras, the consecration of every temple is done by the same mantra, invoking cosmic energy in a particular way and enshrining it in the icon inside. So everywhere the same force has been imported. But that force does not remain there because people do not go there. Without men, without worshippers, God is nowhere. God is helpless in a way. And therefore, and that was actually taken care of by the formation of the temple culture with God in a particular form. Those who are familiar with the construction of temples know that the stone, now they are building with granite and with concrete. Those days it used to be built with stone only. Granite, there are three types of granite: male, female and neuter. If you sculpt a female image in a male granite, it will fall off, and vice versa. And only those granites which are female will be used for sculpting images of goddesses, and the other for images of the male form of God. At the same time, the sanctum sanctorum will be built with a particular type of granite which has got the capacity to absorb sound and resonate, and at the same time absorb carbon dioxide and provide oxygen. If you sit inside the sanctum sanctorum built in that fashion and all the doors are closed, you will not choke. There will be a constant supply of oxygen. There is a constant purification of the lungs through the withdrawal of carbon dioxide, and at the same time you will not feel the pain of solitude, because claustrophobia cannot develop in a place where oxygen and carbon dioxide are in proper balance, and where your own breath becomes a vital force of sound to sustain your body without food, at least for a period of 5.5 hours. After that you will feel hungry, you may be sleepy. So that, and then outside in the main mandapa and in the prakaras, the corridors, they chose stones which will absorb sound and reverberate it. That's why when somebody goes inside the temple and says a hymn or a shloka, it is actually recorded there and resonates. And so when anybody goes there, he benefits by that. And going along the corridor, there is also a particular way in which has to be done. Each stone has a particular tonal value, and there are 4 sides, or prakaras is called. The first prakara will have a tonal value, say 4. Second prakara 8. Third will be 12. Fourth will be 16. As you go around, the sound that has been unconsciously imparted into you through resonance will magnify itself into infinite sound. What is infinite sounds? Silence is the infinite sound, because silence has infinite decibelage. You calculate the virility of sound by decibels. That which is infinite decibelage is silence. That's why when you pray in silence or meditate in silence and mentally intune anything, the power of that will spread all around you. In that whole locality, it will have its effect. So The prakaras are cultivated in that fashion. And then at the same time they wanted to tell him that a temple is only built to make devotees aware that a temple is not necessary. The temple represents a particular situation in which there is a form of a man reclining against the wall. His legs represent the approach road. His heart region represents the sanctum sanctorum. His head represents the vimanam. And therefore, when you see a man sitting like that, concentrating, will be able to see, feel the entire universe around him by a practice of breath control. He cannot do it alone there. When he comes to the temple, he will be reminded of the fact as to what he should do. He must go from the temple, go home, sit in that particular posture, concentrate, and then as you do it for a period of 48 days, without your knowledge, your breath will come under control, and then at one moment you will hear tingling sound between the eyebrows, and then suddenly you will have a feeling of awareness. This has been in the gross represented by a granite lotus, a granite form of God on that lotus, a sanctum sanctorum, heart region, a door before that, a bell before the sanctum sanctorum. You ring the bell, throw open the door and say, I have got the darshan of the Lord. What should take place inside is externalized to give you an instruction. At the same time, having constructed a temple, having installed something, and giving it so much of power by your own prayers, you should not, that granite has a capacity to develop cancer at a very fast rate. And that cancer development will not be visible. One day, when you try to press a little the crown, it will immediately come, the entire granite idol will fall into dust. And therefore, they had a system of abhishekam, washing it, by about 12 articles or materials. One of which will make it greasy, the other will dry it, the third will penetrate it, the fourth will exhaust the air in it, the fifth will absorb the air into it. Like that, prasamam gandhatairancha, dvitiyam panchagavyakam, panchamrtam tritiyancha, gritasthanam chaturtakam, panchamam payasasnanam, madhusnanam saptakam, shashtamam chu bidvanacheva, parasaram tatashtamam, navamam narikeyancha, dashamam vichusodakam, ekadashamam gandhatoyam, dvadasham kalashodakam. The granite must not be smeared with oil. No temple which will not apply oil to the granite will lose its idol within 3.5 years. There's a time span. So you first apply oil, plenty of oil, and wash a little of it by Panchagavyam. And as and when you proceed along this course of Abhishekam, the icon will develop, the granite icon will develop a certain amount of brightness without any polish of any kind of, it's a brightness automatically there. That brightness has been scientifically explained as a state of preparedness of the granite to receive sound. Therefore, after you perform the Abhishekam, you do the Deeparadhana, and people just look at it and pray. That sound is automatically recorded in that granite, and it will be reverberated when you go home in your mind to give you a certain peace of mind. All these links are particularly there. But what happened in between was, nobody explained these things to anybody. And so they said, as a matter of fact, you should bathe the idol in this particular fashion. You must keep the doors open during a particular period, closed in a particular... So it's all a question of command without any explanation. That way, the man who was doing the Abhishekam got a lot of importance. There's nothing important for the individual concerned, but society considered him to be a very superior being. He is able to go near the Lord himself, watch him, touch him, embrace him even. So all that created an illusion that beside the granite, something else is required to attract your mind and temper your understanding and expand your vision. All these things take place simultaneously if you just concentrate on why that granite has been installed in that particular fashion in that particular area. Then my friend asked me, can we not have temples or icons except in granite? I said, there are 8 materials by which an idol can be made. Shaili, wood, stone, Dharumayi, wood, Shaili, Dharumayi, Lohi, metal, Lepya, paste, Lekya, painting, Saikati, mud, Manomayi, that is thinking in the mind, Manimayi, through gems. Any of these will have all these qualities. Of all the other things, this is the most steadiest thing that you can think of, will last longer. If you can make it of mud, it cannot remain for long. Paste will dry up. It can't be used for more than once. But in the case of granite, you can use it a number of times. Suppose he asked me, all the temples are destroyed by an invader or by the spread of atheism. Then what will happen? The sound vibrations that have been contained all therein will expand, will be disseminated automatically in different forms, in different ways, at different wavelengths, and they will be in the air. Sometime later, or even centuries later, just as a radio receiver receives sounds, there will be a person or persons who will receive these sounds hanging in the air, and once again this whole thing will be created. Life is nothing if it's not repetitive. And then that repetitiveness is the basis of the practices of religion, as have been given by the rishis and the later writers. Of that we can have a look a little later. My interlocutor asked me a very interesting question. He said, forms have been created through the speculation or imagination of highly evolved individuals. And when they created that form, they kept the secret within themselves and then wrote stories about it in the grass, which obscured the purpose for which they considered it. And therefore, he put me a straight question. I have seen in some parts of South India the worship of a goddess called Matangi. They called her Uchishta Chandali. Chandali means untouchable. Why do they call a goddess Uchishta Chandali? How could that be a divine being? What is the secret behind it? I said, it is very simple. It represents the spoken word. Before the spoken word, there are 5 stages. The first stage is infinite sound, namely silence. The second stage is unclarified thought coming from that silence. That is called para. That is second stage. The third stage is clarified thought. That is called pasyanti. The fourth stage is ideation. That is called panchama, madhyama. And the last stage is known as vaikari, sound. There are 5 stages: para, silence, para, pasyanti, madhyama, and vaikari. The 5th is a spoken word, vaikari. So why in Sanskrit, panchama means the 5th as well as the untouchable. And therefore, humorously they put the word vaikari as panchama. Panchama is in feminine gender in Sanskrit grammar. So they made it a goddess. And then they called her Uchishta Chandali. untouchable is always called Chandali. Uchishta is one who is eating the crumbs. But on the contrary, Uchishta means Udgatasya Shishtam. It is the what comes out below 4 or 5 things above it. And therefore, it is Uchishta. And they built a legend also. That's why people were confused. They said, Meenakshi or Matangi had a great bhakta by name Matanga, sage Matanga. By some misfortune, he was cursed to become an untouchable. The goddess wanted to redeem him. So he was born as the daughter of that Rishi. Matanga's Rishi is the name. Matanga's daughter became Matangi. And because Matanga was a Chandala, she was a Chandali. But actually, analyze it, idea is Matam. What comes out of that ideation is sentence. That sentence is actually Vaikari, the 5th stage. So far as the individual is concerned, you should not imagine that is any particular god or goddess. It's a stage of speech. And there is one secret behind this. He who has perfected all these 5 stages by his own contemplation will be able to speak in any language without having learnt it. Then my interlocutor has told me that is just cock and bull story. I said, it's not. I have had personal experience of this happening. I had a guru to whom many people used to come to solve their problems. I used to meet him a number of times, usually Sundays. He sits on a swing. I sit on the floor. We will converse on many things for nearly an hour and a half. One day, as he was talking to me, he suddenly rose from the swing and sat on the floor. I asked him why. I said, a strange thing is going to happen now, and then you will understand why. 4 people came in, a mother and 2 sons and their attendant. Of the 2 sons, the particular one son, the younger one, must be at least about 35 years of age, looked like a completely mad person, a lunatic. So this woman asked my guru, sir, from birth this boy has been a lunatic. Formerly he used to be very quiet. Now he becomes very violent. I sometimes keep him fettered. I went to all sorts of people to get a cure for this. Medically they said there is no remedy. So I came to you to find a remedy. He said, stop this nonsense. I will talk to him, please don't interrupt. He went to a lunatic and told him, great sir, take pity on me. Please can you answer one simple question that I put to you. That boy, who had never gone to school, never learned any language, told him, Grandpa, you are going to ask me the meaning of the 10th shloka in Daya Shatakam of Vedanta Deshika. Can I give the meaning in Sanskrit, Tamil, Oriya, German or French? My guru knew French and German. And he said, you give it in Tamil first and then in the other 2 languages. He turned to me, sir, you have read so much of Shakespeare. Do you want a rendering of this shloka in Shakespeare's iambic pentameter? He surprised all of us by speaking in all these languages and composing an iambic pentameter. My curiosity was aroused. I asked him, why did you pretend to be a lunatic first? Secondly, without going to school or anywhere, how did you acquire this capacity to discern into any language at will? And in a very excellent fashion too. His English diction was exemplary. His Tamil was of the poet's Sangam period. Like that, how did you get it experience? Then he told me, you don't know Matangi? I know her. Matangi represents Nispatastam. From the beginning, I concentrated on silence, para, pashyanti, madhyama, the 5 stages of speech. When you catch it at para, you can move it in a language. It becomes, any language becomes an open book because a language is a compendium of sounds. And para is the encyclopedia of all sounds, which automatically reels into sentences through ideation. All this comes automatically. And then I asked him, what are you going to do hereafter? My mother went to Benares on pilgrimage. My brother thought I was a nuisance. He wanted to kill me. He mixed poison with my food. Poor fellow, he did not know that I can die only when I want to. So all of them were ashamed and alarmed. Then asked, what was your next goal? My mother will be living for 4 more years. After she leaves, I go to the Himalayas, where I will be in the company of similar fools. Many of them are there. I will choose a group of fools and join their company. I mention this because some of these concepts are not explained properly. So there is a mantra for Uchishta Chandali addressing the Uchishta Chandali. So you must imagine that they are praying to a goddess who, out of pity for the untouchables, took the form of an untouchable and is being worshipped in that fashion. All this is the working of the mind of later persons who lost the substance-bearing things and hanging to symbols. Then many of these forms have got enshrined in a confusing way, and therefore one individual by name Chandilya wanted to codify them, and he codified them on the basis of attribution of certain qualities to each category. That was the origin of what is called Panchayatana. You worship God in 5 forms: Adityam, Ambikam, Vishnum, Gananatham, Maheshwaram. And these 5 forms became the Panchayatana Murtis, which everybody was expected to worship. Of course, there also came sectarianism. Some people began to worship only Vishnu, some only Shiva, and some only Shakti. Without understanding, all the 5 represent the 5 different angles of vision of the infinite prowess to create, to protect, to destroy, to fondle, and to withdraw. All these things are interrelated, and in a peculiar way, this Panchayatanam was being used blindly. But even there, our rishis were very careful. They thought these people should not lose themselves in form. So they said, Ganesha is represented by a particular stone. A stone has no form. It seems to have a form, but it is not a shape. And therefore, it is a halfway between the form and the formless. Vishnu is represented by a particular black stone. Shiva is represented by quartz. Devi is represented by lodestone. Shiva is represented by a crystal. So these have no form. No, they don't describe any form. They don't have any features, but still they are considered to be the forms of those deities. That is, as concentrating on them, you will find that the form is something like the bait to catch the fish. The mind cannot catch anything automatically. It uses the form as the bait to attract it inside. The moment you are able to think about these things naturally, spontaneously, and automatically, you don't require the bait of a form, you will immediately get it inside you. And then, when I said inside, my interlocutor asked me, what is inside and what is outside? Does it have any relationship to the physical body with which every individual is endowed? I said, it does have a relationship with this body. It does have a relationship with the bodiless state also. How? He asked me. Inside the body, there is the heart. Inside the heart, there is a small space where there is a take 22 drops of water. It's not water as such, 22 drops of liquid. If that liquid dries up, you die. At that particular part, the magnetic activity is supposed to be of an infinite quantity. You don't feel it. That's why when somebody concentrated on the heart region, he is able to have a rapport with the infinite almost instantaneously. But he does not concentrate on the fleshy heart, but on the ether containing the water inside the heart. That ether, the water is the Chira Samudra, and the inside fluid is the form of Vishnu, the infinite. The primal water is drop, magnetized by the presence of infinite, because in every created being, in every matter, animate as well as inanimate, it's remaining in that fashion only because it's being held up in that particular way. The atoms are different, the molecules may be different, the permutation combination may be different, but the mutual imposition of these things, which automatically creates a particular quantity, that quantity is called the Hridaya Akasha Bindu. Bindu is a drop of water. So there is a saying, in the Bindu there is the ocean. From the ocean comes the Bindu. Bindau Sindhu, Sindhu Bindu. So that conception is necessary. For that reason, you see, you have to concentrate on the inside. That is the inside. At the same time, the outside also is equally important. Not because of the familiar loose saying, without a body or good health, you cannot do anything. It's not that. The body has a certain arrangement from head to foot, and it functions in a particular way. You can imagine it as a great factory with the manager or entrepreneur sitting in the region which is called the brain. But it's not that. The body is an assemblage of atoms in 22 combinations. Each combination has a particular quality. The leg has a quality to walk. The hand has the quality to grasp. The eye has the quality to see. Like that, this atomic distribution by permutation and combination keeps this body in this particular form. Who is a yogi? Who is able to disassemble all this and throw it into the air and draw it through the breath from the air. He can make and unmake his own body. And at the same time, the body can be a very powerful instrument for sustaining life. How? You have read in the Puranas that a sage performed tapas for 3,000 years or 30,000 years, like that. What is this? Is it possible for a human body to live that long? Even granting he is going to do that tapas like that, what happens to excretion, urination and all that? It will not be a dirty thing to be there like that. The answer is, the first yoga that was taught in the Vedas to the rishis, which has been lost, is to enable the body to sustain itself without food by making it stand in the open under the sun, receiving the energy of the sun and energy also from the earth and energy from the plants, like as the chlorophyll does. And when anything is taken as energy, you want energy to run the body. When it's taken in form of energy, there is no secretion, excretion. There is a picture that appeared in the Life magazine years ago of a rishi, a person, in the Himalayas. He was sitting in that pasture according to recorded evidence for nearly 1,200 years. He is covered by twigs and trees, and sometimes there is also an anthill being forming around him, but still keeps cool. The body can look after it, the body can look after itself without any intervention. Your mind can concentrate in whatever way you like. And when I said mind, my friend asked me, is not mind a great nuisance? It views thoughts, it goes after, flees after things, and if you want to write a book on association of ideas for anybody or for a group of persons. You can produce volume upon volume and still cannot exhaust them. And so it's not mind nuisance. Yes, that's why our rishis said, what is liberation? When mind dies, the death of the mind, manonasham moksham. When mind dies, so when can the mind die? When it does not spin ideas. When it will not spin ideas, because the mind remains content with itself and does not go after fleeting images. How can mind be content with itself? And what is that itself? The mind, if it suddenly remembers that you are not the body, and that you don't belong to the body, and that even the mind is an imposition on the body, and as a channel of communication between the void, in the vast void, and the human body, then automatically the idea of I and self will melt into thin air. The mind automatically dies. For a man who dies, the existence of the body may not be there. For him, Daivad upetam, ata Daivashad apetam, vaso yada padikritam, madhira madhandaha. Just as a drunkard, fully drunk person will not remember or be conscious whether he has a clothes or not, whether he is clothed or not. So also the yogi in that particular position where the mind has died will not be aware of the surroundings. The trickiness about it here is the yogi is like a lunatic or a madman or a drunkard. The converse need not be true. Not all drunkards. And then my friend asked me, speaking of drunkards, I have seen in North India bairagis who take bhang, some narcotic, and then they sing and dance and all that. So how does it help them? I said, those who take narcotics will be aware of one thing. What they think of at the time they began thinking of it, taking it, it will last in their memory. It will get stuck in their memory. If I think of the form of God and they take this narcotic, all through their drunken state, they will remember only that. Likewise, the yogis who want to come back to this world, who do not want to leave the body but come back to this world, will try to have some vice, some habit, say cigarettes. It was Ram Srinivas Kumar, the great yogi. He was a chain smoker. That created a link between his body that is inside and the mind that is trapped in the infinite. And so some people do it for that reason. But all that is an artificial way of compelling the mind to do things which it should learn to do automatically. And the automaticity arrived when you go to a person who has had experience of out-of-body happenings. Here is a very, very dangerous area. You now have so much written about extrasensory perception and going out of the body. And people will try to experiment with it. The experiment will be dangerous, but still. Suppose you are lying on a bed, fully on your back. Have your legs placed on a pillow at sufficient height so that you can see with your eye your two toes. Go on looking at that for 15 minutes. You will be a cashier. You will be able to see from above your body lying in that position. That's a blood control exercise should be done before that. Then you can come back to the body. If you have not learnt it, automatically the next day they will try to burn you. That's all. That's the end of the matter. So outer body experience is possible for curing people, for consoling people, as far as rishis are concerned. There is a friend of mine, I am not a rishi, but I have had this experience myself. A friend of mine who is an auditor wanted to go to Muscat, and then he came to me and told me that he is going with his wife to that place on a particular day, and then I must be able to help him with some message. Somehow it occurred to me to tell him that 6 months hence, after you reach there, you will develop a violent stomachache, which cannot be cured except by yourself thinking of your dead grandfather. He went away that way. 6 months hence, he had the same attack. And at first I did not remember it. Then he remembered it and then thought of his grandfather. And then he became all right. When he came to me, he asked me, how is this possible? I said, that is called the eerie coincidence, which creates a rapport between a question and an answer. The answer may be contained in a place or person not known to you, but you can always spot the particular person and tell you that. And you must forget about it. You must not make a practice of trying to tell people like this. So, the human mind, when it is dissociated from the body, travels at a speed faster than light. But only thing is, it must come back to the body within 32 minutes. If it doesn't come back to the body, automatically the person is dead. Coming back within the 32 minutes, you can travel to any place in the universe, interstellar region, extrastellar region. But this is only magic. Because there is one thing you must remember, there is no greater miracle than man himself, because man is God. And because sometimes he is able to exercise some part of his divine powers, he is able to do certain things, materialize things, teleport things from one place to another. All this is only magic. That has nothing to do with religion or God. It's a capacity inherent in us. We have infinite capacity, of which we don't even use a negligible fraction. And therefore, I told my friend, outer body experience is an area which you must avoid, because it doesn't give you any great advantage by way of improved spirituality. It on the contrary creates a condition in which unconsciously begin thinking that you are godlike and that you are a superior person, and you begin to look down on everybody around you as very inferior. Worms, the eagle does not care for flies, why should I care for them? So that type of experience is not possible. Likewise, those who do blood control properly will have experiences. Suddenly they will hear sound from a place very far away. That is called Dura Shravana. Or they will see forms far away from here. Those are things which are within the realm of possibility, but they are not miracles. They are actual things happening, but we should avoid all that, because only then, if you sink into them, begin your life, end your life as a magician without any spiritual elevation. Because ultimately, the important thing that is necessary for us is that we are in a trap. It's a comfortable trap with a comfortable food, and the conditions are shaped for us, but it's always a trap. And this body may not be able to be secured easily any other time in the way in which we got it now. And therefore, try to maximize the advantage that the body gives you by exercising its finer faculties and making it see the world outside as a dramatic arena where you are the observer and they are the play actors. And when the whole thing is reversed and you realize that you are a play actor in the vast scheme of things which God has endowed his world with, then you will not attach any great value to any happenings in this world, because a character is in the drama, when they weep for something, it's not for any particular sorrow that they had gone through, but because that's what they are expected to pretend to. It's a pretension. The entire life is an unknown pretension in which we indulge because of our ignorance that there is a fundamental reality about it. It does not mean the world is unreal. You can't knock your head at a stone, and you'll still bleed, you'll still feel the pain. The stone is real in the sense, temporarily it is real. And reality and unreality is a topic that we can take up subsequently.